Mhm.
and that I think essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, because you've done a lot more research on this, but the sellers are saying, I don't want to pay buyer agents their commission.
Right. Well, the entire lawsuit now is up the channel now. It's the Department of Justice versus National Association of Realtors. So it made its way all the way up the chain, past like our board, the local board, local state association now, and then it's a national thing now. So it's not, but it did originate in Missouri and Illinois. I also believe a secondary lawsuit was also filed, and they are the ones basically like pioneering this entire lawsuit. But it's been against not only just buyer agent commission, but why does the seller have to pay for both the buyer and seller side? So I think that really it's multifaceted. This lawsuit, I feel like, is there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Yeah, and I will just say, like, I pretty much ignored it up until this last week and a half. And I guess what triggered, well, you're really the one that kind of woke me up to it. You're like, hey, you need to watch this. But there was a settlement. So now it's like these associations, they're kind of like admitting, yeah, there's something to this. So now we have precedent. And I really do believe every agent should be paying attention to this, especially those that primarily work with buyers. So I'm just going to say my take, Christina, of why initially I thought, like, oh, there's no way this could ever change. And then now I'm kind of backtracking and thinking, oh, well, maybe this is going to change. And how are we going to adapt as an industry?
Yeah.
So initially I was thinking, there is no way that anyone's going to say that we can't, that the seller can't pay the buyer's agent, because the buyers don't have the money to cover the buyer agency fee. And most of them don't, right? And in my area, and I think majority of the country, first-time home buyers are struggling to come up with their down payment and their closing costs. So now we're going to add another 3%. What's going to happen? They're not going to use an agent. And then I feel that they're going to be underrepresented. It's just going to be a lot more inconvenient. And basically, they're going to go up against somebody that's negotiating against them. And of course, that's been our narrative, right? Like for decades, we've been saying, hey, use me as your buyer's agent because it doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Yeah.
You can't say that anymore, though. And you should probably remove that from your vocabulary. Like, completely remove that. Don't post about that anymore. I would not be saying that you are. Let's be honest. You are not a nonprofit realtor.
Yeah.
More than likely, if you are following this, I know I'm not, Jessica. I know you're not. I know that most of the people that we identify and our colleagues are not. We are for profit. We do work for money.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to this day, I mean, honestly, I even went over my buyer's agency, which we still have the verbiage in our buyer's agencies, which I'm sure will change. But I showed them, okay, you have to pay me 3% commission, and I should say X percent, okay, because obviously we can all charge whatever we want to charge. So sorry. Strike that from the record. But anyway, I say you're going to pay me this percentage of commission if the seller's agent doesn't offer buyer agent compensation. So I do explain to them that this is something they're responsible for. But of course, I am reassuring them that on the MLS, we're advertising this co-broke. Well, that changed, and I'm sure you heard about that, right? So where the lawsuit originated, that MLS has now made it where the listing agent does not have to put a co-broke commission in the MLS.
And that's going to change, though. That's part of the lawsuit, is the fact that we consumers cannot go and see what the payout is on both sides. So that is part of the lawsuit, is that they want the consumers to be able to see it all.
Yeah, transparency.
Yeah.
And
they want to see what we can see in the MLS, basically, is what they're saying. Why is that proprietary to only a realtor and only the MLS and only brokers to be able to see that information? The consumer should be able to base their decision with that information.
Yeah, because I think the argument has always been don't deviate from this standard cooperating commission, because
Right.
then you're going to turn off buyer's agents, which isn't ethical. I mean, really, I mean, I don't feel like we should base whether we're going to show somebody a house necessarily what we get paid, although we need to get paid, you know, I mean, I'm not saying we don't, but at the same time, I don't know, it's just so loaded. There's so many things to
So much
consider.
to unpack. I mean, I'm like you, like I didn't really take it too seriously until Tom Ferry was like, hey, you need to take this seriously. And I respect Tom Ferry. I mean, he's got a lot of followers.
I just
But
spilled my coffee all over myself.
I mean, a lot of people love Tom Ferry, but you know, Tom Ferry's never sold a house. So take that for what you will. But he does do a lot of good, I think, for our industry and getting just awareness out there and like information out there, because he's got a great YouTube channel. He's got a big following, and agents do listen to him and like listen to what he says. So I actually did go on his call that he had a couple weeks ago talking about this, unpacking this. He had a couple different brokers from different states on there, and it was a really great conversation. Really just, I learned a lot. Although at the end, I felt like I, I feel like I'm going to be okay. I don't know. I'm sure you will too, but I feel like a lot of agents are not going to be okay. And I think it's for the same reasons they're not okay now. A lot of agents are not educated. They don't know how to like share their value. They don't even know how to explain a buyer's agency agreement and get someone to sign it before they ever show them a property. And I have never operated that way in my almost 9 years in this business. You have to pay to play to work with me. And I've always set that standard. And I feel like a lot of agents don't have a line. They don't have a standard, and it's a free for all because they're desperate for business, and they will let people walk all over them. And when you don't have boundaries, that's exactly what people will do. And so I think for the agents that are educated, the agents that are doing the things the right way, which means, are you actually giving your client a buyer's agency agreement and reading it to them and or explaining it to them when they have questions, why they actually have to sign this to work with you, like what it actually means, instead of saying, here's this document, sign it, you know, I have to have this for my brokerage. That's not good enough, and it's not going to be good enough. You have to do better. We all have to do better. And so if this is not just going to be like a slap on the wrist anymore, this is going to be like forced. We're going to be forced to make this, to be educated and to show our value, because our jobs are on the line, basically.
Yeah. This is a common thing I hear, and it's like the number one objection I hear from my agents, even like in my own team. Well, it doesn't hold up. But here's the thing. I mean, I'm not going to sue someone. I'm just not going to. I'm not going to go after them for the buyer's agency, and I'm not going to go after them for the listing. But does that mean that I shouldn't do my part? No. That's my thought process on it. That's why I'm getting it signed. And I believe purely most people default on buyer's agencies because they don't understand them. I mean, I talk about the consumer, and I know 100% of them, or a bigger majority of them, are going to default on this like nothing. When we have no contractual agreement, they're more likely to go with somebody else, right? So that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it starts from the minute you are in contact with that lead or with that client. You are setting the tone for the entire process. And if it's okay and you're like, this is how we do things, and you're walking your client towards whatever that is, and you have the mutual respect and understanding with them, I totally feel like at least my clientele base does not balk. Very rarely in my career, I can count on one hand how many times I've ever had somebody actually refuse to sign that or would not work with me because of it. Like, it just doesn't happen. When you niche down and you are really speaking to your people, they know, like, and trust you and highly respect your opinion. And that's not going to stop just because of a lawsuit. That's only because we're just moving into, what level of service do you want? Do you want somebody to just open a door? Do you want somebody to just write a contract? Or do you want full service? Do you want somebody that's going to explain documents to you, advise you, and use their expertise to walk you through from start to finish in the most expensive thing you'll probably ever buy in your life? Hello, like, I know I do. You know, I mean, for most people, even like most of the people that I work with are highly educated. I sell like a lot of high-end homes. I'm part of the luxury division at my brokerage. So these are people with a lot of money, a lot of wealth. They still do not understand. A good example, I have a listing that's closing this week, my big luxury listing. Don't assume that they know anything, like about anything. They were listed on the MLS before they hired me with another agent for 9 months, and they didn't even have a signed listing agreement. Yeah, I know, right? We should have another call after this deal closes so I can unpack this. It's bizarre. But also, they were never given a proof of funds before everybody stepped in the foot in their home. And this is almost a $2 million house. So, and not that should matter, but we as agents should make sure that everybody that goes to see that house is qualified, and you need to show the proof. And they were like, oh, well, the other agent never showed us proof. So we probably had people in there that we didn't know if they could buy our house or not. We didn't know if they were qualified. It's just like a level of service that you are giving people. And when you are the authority and you are setting that tone, people will respect you. They will do what needs to be done to work with you because you know what you're doing.
Well, so here's my question. The limited research that I've done so far and the way I'm thinking it's going to go, are buyers agencies going to become a thing of the past? So, and I have that's my question for you. Yeah. But first, let me just say, like what I was reading this morning is a lot of other countries actually already do it this way.
Yes.
So the buyer goes direct to the listing agent. And I will say this, like, I feel like we really, really had to work hard to let buyers know that, hey, you don't have to call the listing agent. So it's almost like intuitive, right? They believe that that's what they have to do anyway. And we've had to undo that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we all know the why there's a disadvantage to going straight to the listing agent. But if you compare it to other similar industries like car dealerships,
yeah,
right? They go straight to the dealer who has the inventory. So my thought on this is I'm not going to worry so much at the buyer agency myself. I've already been a listing agent. That's what I'm going to plan on doing is I'm going to double down on getting as much inventory as I can possibly get. And then I'll have what they're looking for, right? They'll come to me and I mean, here's some pros. So one, I won't have to deal with as many other agents. And let's face it, most buyer's agents are newer in the business and, you know, and not all, obviously there's a lot of really great seasoned and, you know, years in the business doesn't equate value or knowledge either. Okay. Don't get me wrong. There are brand new agents that are amazing, but I can also count a lot of new agents that blow deals up unnecessarily.
Well, what is that? That's stemming from a lack of education. So one of the things I have in the notes that I took from that call was it's a really great idea for you to go back through and take your state's buyer agency course or review again to make sure that you understand it. And you should be talking to your broker about any questions you have around that because you really need to be able to know how to reiterate that information. It's just like the contract that you're writing and giving to somebody to sign. It's one thing to write it and read it, but it's another thing to understand and interpret. So you really need to know how to do that and then this is like a legal thing. This isn't just like from an educational standpoint. This is like you can get yourself in hot water if you do not know what you're doing. That's the whole point of us being licensed. That's what sets you apart from somebody just calling an agent and saying, hey, I'm going to represent myself, right? Otherwise it'd be the wild, wild west out here like it used to be, you know, years ago. And I really feel like this is, like you said, like it's just going to condense down the market, the industry of people. They're just going to have to really reiterate their value. The value proposition is going to get so important.
I see how sellers win, and I can see how like agents that have experience that are great at listing. You know, I can see how I can position myself, but who I see as losing in this situation is buyers. You know, because they're not going to. Most of them are going to want to pay and they're going to go straight to the listing agent. They're going to hop around from house that they're interested in to house, you know, time after time. I will say one positive that I heard this morning was it made even the playing field for buyers because now they all have to go through the same listing agent, or the majority of them will. And so you don't have maybe some games that are being played right now. And I will say, if I have a multiple offer situation and all things are equal on an offer, I'm definitely explaining the history I have with a buyer's agent to my sellers, because I know if there's somebody that has a history of blowing things up and making things way bigger than they need to, my seller needs to know that I owe a duty to my seller to disclose anything I know.
Well, and I wonder if it's not a coincidence that this started in my state, because in my state we do practice dual agency, and I've been a dual agent. I can't even count how many times I work with a lot of for sale by owners and do the dual agency thing. And a lot of people say that you can't be, representing both sides. Like, it's very difficult. I think it can be done in a way when both parties understand what's happening. Again, that is not for somebody that is brand new, that has no idea how to explain things, because you're dealing with the law at that point. You are like in my state, you're almost like a bona fide real estate attorney. You have to really know that contract. We do not use attorneys. We only use title companies in my state. So it is very different maybe than other places. And I wonder if that's why the lawsuit started here. It could just be a coincidence, but I know in other states, dual agency is illegal. Like, you can't practice that, and that's for a reason. It's for protection of the buyer versus the seller. And so now we're going into a situation where, like, we get I see a lot of questions in the comments. How is this going to handle? This is really great. The VA, they have not figured this out. How are VA going to get paid out? How are, like you said, low income or people that can't afford it? I believe, my theory is that we'll get wrapped into the loan, and the lender will have to eat it in some sort of way if they want to work with you. That's going to be like a benefit for them to have to work with your clients, because otherwise, who else is going to pay for this? Because this is going to socioeconomically disadvantage people that cannot afford it. And what's the whole point of NAR? Is to protect home ownership in the American dream for everyone, not just rich people, not for just people that can afford it, for everyone.
And I don't know if this is how it's going to go, but the way I'm envisioning is all agents are going to work for the seller.
Right.
In my area, and I've been in the business for 20 years, so, the laws have evolved a little bit. And when I first came to this area in Southeast Kansas, all brokers took listings as sellers agents. There wasn't even designated agency in our area. It was all, and so the consumer comes to us and we say, treat me like I'm the seller. Don't disclose information. I mean, you have to tell them that, right? And so they're not being represented. They're not getting advice. And I would let them know. This is my theoretical of how this is going to work. I don't know, but I'm going to have the listing. The buyers are going to come to me, and I'm going to say, I'm like the seller. Here's why you should offer X, Y, and Z. So I'm advocating for the seller, obviously trying to get them the highest price. And if the buyer says, well, I really want advice, I want help, then I would let them know, well, you are going to have to hire a buyer's agent. But here's the reason that I'm hearing that the buyer agent doesn't have the pool that we used to, because the buyer has access to what we have access to typically, right? So the buyer is able to go on Zillow and find all of those houses because we were stupid as realtors and syndicated and gave all of our inventory away. So
I think that my theory, here's my theory in a nutshell. After breaking this apart, I think Zillow is going to lose bad. All these referral-based companies, I think they're going to go under. I think any kind of referral fee-based company they should be really scared right now. And, Zillow just removed now they're on a flex where they're on a straight referral. That could make them implode. I don't know. I feel kind of indifferent about it because I've never used them. If you do or whatever, that's your prerogative. But I feel like, again, we're going back to, you are the brand. You need to be niching down and figuring this out on your own instead of relying on other people to feed your business. This is going to go back to hard work. And actually having to work.
And everyone's commission's cut in half.
And everyone's commissions, well, except the top 10% who do 90% of the work already, we're going to be making more. Well, we make more business. What everyone else won't do.
But if the seller is now saying, I don't want to pay the buyer's fee, and we've sort of conditioned everyone, here's what it is. So now they're only paying the listing side. And I also have to deal with the buyer. Now my pay is in half. Unless you get them to pay it. You pay your own fee, you charge your own fees. I mean, I do have a split fee. Like, for instance, when I take a buyer out and the listing is not paying out what I want and I have a minimum, they pay the difference. Yeah. They pay the difference. They stroke the check to do that. Like, if they want to work with me, that's what they do. Yeah, well, that's what our buyer's agency says. But I'm saying that, like, if I'm just a listing agent, straight up listing agent, the buyer comes to me directly, I don't have an agreement with the buyer,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, I mean, we're just in uncharted territory. It's going to be really interesting. And here's what I do know.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it's going to change the landscape of real estate. And you can look at it one of two ways.
Yeah.
You can look at it like this is, the final nail in the coffin and I'm getting out of the business. Or you can look at it as it's opportunity for me to take more market share. And that's where I'm choosing to exist.
Yes. So let me just unpack some of the notes that I have here on some high notes that I really want to hit on your call here. Like we talked about, dual agency might go away. Relocation companies, they're going to be hit hard. These relocation companies that pay hefty fees, referral companies. We talked about consumers having to be shown both sides of the deal and basically any and all commissions. This was really, really great. You better know your E&O policy in and out to make sure you're covered and know your deductible, because this will increase liability and will increase lawsuits, I believe. So you better know. Do you know this is a great fun fact. I don't know if most people know this, but they only know what the monthly fee is, what they pay. They don't realize what has to happen to enact that, if they get sued, or if they're Mr. and Mrs. Buyer or seller sues each other, because you get indemnified in those lawsuits. Did you know that most brokerages, it can cost you $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for your deductible? But you're over here paying $50 a transaction thinking you're okay, and then boom, you get hit with a lawsuit, right? I know my brokerage is $2,500, which
that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
It's $2,500 in my brokerage, and I love it. And
have you ever been sued, Christina?
I have never.
I've been sued.
Never been sued and never been indemnified. So
once I've been sued, and it was with an kicked in, and I was a newer agent, and I was not in the wrong at all. It was just somebody that basically we sold a lot and said water's available, which was accurate. However, it was on a hill and it needed to be pumped up, and I wasn't aware of that. This person that listed it was the city chief of police, and he definitely knew that, and he didn't disclose it to me. And the buyer wanted to build it. It was going to cost him a lot more. Anyway, that's a long story, but that's why I got sued, and my broker decided to just settle it. So we were out $2,500. E&O covered it. But yeah, so unfortunately,
so you better know your policy there.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, so this is like the biggest deal. You're just going to be establishing your value, and you have to decide: are you Nordstrom or are you Walmart? It's going to be a tiered level of service that you're going to have to give people, right? That we're talking to, same way that we do on the listing side. A lot of people offer a concierge service. Do you want me to just list your property and do photos? Do you want me to do video? Do you want me to do social media? Do you want me to pay for somebody to clean your house? Do you want staging? Like, what level of service? So I feel like we're going to go into like a tiered level of buyer's agency. And I think smart agents will offer this. Do you just want me to show you the property and write the offer? Again, what level of service are you? Decide if you're Nordstrom, decide if you're Walmart. Everybody, a Coke has Pepsi. There's everybody, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's going to go away. Like, it's just, things are just, like you said, the landscape is just going to change in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It will be interesting. Your presentation skills need to be key. So if you're not really great at speaking to people, maybe go take a Toastmasters class. Or really, if you need to learn like tonality and language, take some classes in psychology on understanding people, because so many people are so scared to ask somebody to sign a document, or they're worried that they're going to lose the client. But there's just something about a person that is confident and direct, and you have authority over someone else when you're explaining, because you are the expert. So just get really good at your confidence, like knowing your knowledge, and then and that makes you confident. Confidence comes from education and knowledge.
Absolutely. And I was also going to share, I think that this is even more reason that the micro team concept, which, Christina, I've been talking about this for over a year now.
Yeah.
I believe that this is going to be the way of the future, because the traditional model is hiring buyer's agents. Well, if all of a sudden that becomes a different comp model, different service model, and the values in the inventory and the values of being a listing agent, you no longer need the buyer's agents,
Mm-mm.
right? And now you can accomplish the same customer service, the same, like everything with your micro team.
Right.
And so for those that don't know, a micro team is where you have one leader that's doing primarily all the transactions, and you hire strategic hires to help you. And most of the time they're going to be like more of a W-2, not another agent that you're splitting a commission with. And it's a game changer. I mean, I just think this is even more reason to step that up.
Well, that's just like your level of service, right? You're giving someone, you're like, oh, I have someone that's going to help you. So two things there. The second part would be listing to last, still always. Those that control the listings will still control this entire market. So if you can focus on it, even if you're in a buyer's market, you need to control the listings even more so now.
Yes. And so do you think that this is going to make for sell by owners feel like, oh, I don't need my listing agent because now they're going to be like, well, the buyer has to come to you anyway?
I mean, I don't know. You can go ask somebody that's tried to do it themselves and failed. I actually have a great testimonial of a client that hired me that was a for sale by owner. And she was like, I can't even believe what I would have done in X, Y, and Z. So again, this all goes back to the what ifs, right? You're hiring me. What's that? I love that meme that goes around where they're like, you're hiring me for my years of service, not for the minutes it took me to complete my work.
Yes.
You are hiring me for my expertise. You are hiring me for the what ifs, because I've been in those scenarios. I've been doing this long enough. And if you're newer, just know you can use your brokerage also to fall back on in those situations. Nothing can make you experience more things in this industry than time. So just give it time. Something will happen. Every day I still see something new. I'm like, oh, I've been in this almost 9 years. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. Or I don't know how to handle that situation. Like, we're all in this together, though, to just understand that we are the authority in whatever we're doing. We have to be confident in that.
Yeah. And I think that I think it's going to be the same conversation with for sale by owners.
Yeah.
In that it's an exposure game, right? So no matter what, I have more access to more channels and more dedicated resources to expose your home to more potential buyers than they would on their own. Yeah. Right.
Well, it's just a traffic game, right? The more eyes on your property, the more people we can get to see the property, the more people we can get to write an offer, the more offers we can get, the more we can get for you, right? It's just a number. Everything goes back to like your spreadsheets, like the numbers. If I make this many calls and set this many appointments, I'll have this many sales. Like, I feel like it's all back to like when I was in ISA, where they're like, oh, you just do the 5-2 whatever, and like whatever the model is. I'm like, oh, it's really that simple. They're like, yeah, it's just math. Literally just math.
And then you just improve your numbers over time with your skill. Your skill improves your numbers. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So, hopefully we didn't just like totally discourage some of you. I know there are a lot of people, and my team included, we talked about this morning, and my 2 agents that are, they work more with buyers. We're like, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen to me? And then we went through their numbers and looked at all their listings. I'm like, listen, guys, we're fine. You're just going to have to focus more on listings. We have to control more of the inventory, and we need to do that now. So that would be my advice to everybody that's watching, is shift your mindset and look at this as an opportunity and go after as many listings as you can.
Absolutely. Double down on the listings. I know that's exactly what I'm doing. And if your audience would like a copy of my notes and also the FAQs from NAR for the lawsuit, which kind of breaks it down, it's a very helpful guide. We have those PDFs, so just get Jessica your email and we'll get that to you.
Yeah, just send us a DM. You can send us a message on our Facebook page, or you can comment below and we'll reach out to you. And Christina took some really good notes, so we definitely want to get those. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being with us today, Christina. This was a great conversation.
You're welcome. I hope everybody really takes this seriously now.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know I am. All right. Bye.
Bye.